welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and in advance of Farm Safety Week next week, I'm joined by Teagasc Health Safety Specialist John McNamara. Accidents on farm are a continuing cause for concern. I first asked John about farm fatalities and injuries to date.
Sadly, farm fatalities are rising and they're of considerable concern, and we must all do what we can to prevent them. Now, so far this year, 14 farm deaths have taken place. About 8 of those were with machinery, and about 3 of them were with livestock, particularly with bulls, and sadly, 3 of them also were with children. So, as I say, we should do everything to prevent such tragic occurrences.
Most definitely. Across all farms, where do beef farmers rank when it comes to farm safety?
Yeah, that's a hard question, Catherine. No, what our research has shown consistently is that intensive farming is where the accidents happen. In other words, the more farm activity that's going on, the more likelihood there is of an accident. So you can have intensive beef farms and you can have intensive dairy farms. Now, the dairy farmers would be in the majority, so that they tend to get prominence. But really, every farm has risk. Now, a few other thoughts on that subject. One is older farmers. I know out of the 14 that 9 are over the age of 65. Once farmers get into older age, and I'm moving on myself, I'd have to say, no, the risk increases. Farmers slow down both physically and mentally. So I think that's something a family needs to consideration. Now, a third issue that I think affects the beef sector is that, part-time farming, that people can be working off farms, and, this can have positives and it can have negatives. The positive being that people might have adequate income to invest. But the negative would be that if they're rushing and busy and all that, too busy, that then accidents can rise. I've recently submitted a paper, and it showed clearly that where both a farmer and his wife had off-farm employment, that they had a very high level of on-farm accidents. And basically what was happening is that they were coming home, putting on their boots in a hurry and rushing out to the farmyard and slipping on steps or falling off ladders, that sort of thing.
And what advice have you for farmers then that are busy and under pressure in those circumstances that you've outlined?
Yeah, well, I think I've done work organisation, as you know, Catherine, in the past, but I think to stand back and look at your farm and see what you're doing and try and match it in to what is reasonable, and let's be honest, good facilities and good equipment, can allow people to do a good lot of work. That's at one level. At another level, I just want to mention it early on, but we have an excellent risk assessment document. It's a legal requirement to fill it. It's practically drawn up. It highlights the key issues that farmers should focus on from a safety prevention point of view. So it's not just a tick box exercise. It's farmers should go through it. Think about the questions, and if it's right, it's right. But if something needs to be done and put right, the document will lead you to that.
You've mentioned that the TAMS applications will allow for health and safety measures, such as what?
Yeah, no, handling facilities, scoop, railings and silage walls. The list is, anything that could be publicly funded from a health and safety point of view. An outdoor crush, on an out farm. A crushed gate, sculling gate, I'm thinking of machinery now. I'm thinking of livestock now. Slats, building components. Also can be granted.
On most farms, maintenance is being carried out now on winter housing. What should listeners consider before carrying out some of these repairs?
Well, that brings me to a very important point, Catherine, and it's this, that 25 people have died on Irish farms in the last 10 years or so around livestock, around housing, cattle, building, construction and maintenance. Now, an important point I want to make is that 15 of those have died falling from roofs, right? And about 60% of those have fallen through skylights. So there's an 11 times higher risk of a fatality when you're working at a height as opposed to being on at ground level. So I think we need to be awful cautious about going up onto roofs, and it needs to be planned very carefully. Now, the safety, health and welfare at work construction regulations apply, and if a farmer is doing construction work or maintenance, they'd want to consult those. So we have a book, Building Safety. You'll get it on our web. Just put that into the search and it'll come up, and it gives you all the details on that. Just the other few areas that I'm conscious of around maintenance is power washing. A lot of that goes on at the moment, and make sure your electrics are right. I'm aware of a very tragic accident that happened in my own county, Limerick, there back quite a number of years ago, where a person was power washing and the electrics were, there was some issue with the electrics. Now, the third thing I think, and this comes back to the TAMS too, is slats. Slats, I regret to say, won't last forever. Their normal life is about 20 years, but they can last a bit longer than that. Now, slats are wearing out on a lot of farms, and you'll know them by seeing cracks or rough marks or any kind of flexion. And it's time to just look at them over the summer and see what stage they're in, and plan their replacement if needed. And as I said, TAMS 2 covers that.
So it's important to have a plan before you start carrying out any of these repairs, and if necessary to hire in someone that's qualified to carry out some of this maintenance if necessary.
Yeah, no, well, there's lots of things that farmers can do, like well hanging gates and that sort of thing, putting wheels under gates, but you're right, a lot of maintenance to be planned, like such as replacing slats and that. So it's a question of seeing what the problem is, kind of making a list, and if you have to apply for TAMS, you've got to put in the application, but planning it ahead. And I think that is real health and safety management, that just observing your farm, seeing what needs to be done, and most of all, taking action. I think good health and safety management is driven by taking action.
Second crops of silage will be coming out in the coming weeks. What advice have you for the safety of listeners?
No, well, silage, the first thing I'd have to say is that we have made some progress on farms. Power shaft type accidents are down, but they're not gone away, but they're down. The type of accidents that are happening now on farms are people are getting knocked down or they're getting crushed by machinery, and that can happen around silage time. So to talk, the contractor and the farmer should be communicating. People should be taking care, drivers should be taking care driving around farmyards. From a farmer's point of view, it's a question of keeping family members away from the work, particularly children, and that, and tractors are very big and attractive things for children, and they don't look dangerous at a distance, but if somebody gets caught under the wheel of a tractor, like, it could be fatal. So that's what I'd say there. Now, blind spots, just to make sure that the yard is well planned and that there aren't any blind spots and that. And lastly, I just come back to the older farmer who love to get out and farm and help and that. But with tractors coming around, like, and they're quite quiet now, so people mightn't hear them. So to give particular attention to older farmer safety also.
In the next 2 weeks, Health and Safety Authority will be carrying out up to 200 farm inspections. What will the inspectors be looking for out on farms?
No, well, you have it's like doing the exam. You have the book. What's in the risk assessment, that is the National Code of Practice. So basically, inspectors will be looking to see, they're there to see that the law is being implemented. And remember, it's the farmer's job to manage safety. It's not the inspector's job. So they'll be looking to see if things are in place. Now, many farms have improved and they've got better, but some farmers haven't, some farms haven't. So things they'd be looking for, like an uncovered power shaft or an uncovered slurry tank, just to mention two, like, are they a breach of the law? The answer straight off is yes. So looking for those things. Now, an inspector may issue a farmer where that happens with a notice, an improvement notice or a prohibition notice, which means stop. And make sure you comply with those notices. Now, the inspectors also have an advisory role, and they will give advice. And I think a farmer and an inspector should have good dialogue, and you should get the most of out of the inspector's visit. But as you mentioned, like, it's 200 or so out of 140,000 farms, so the chances of an inspection are low. If things were better, we'd be doing open days with inspectors, and sharing knowledge with farmers in that way.
COVID-19 has put some farmers under additional stress and pressures. For any listeners that are overwhelmed or stressed with current circumstances, what help and advice is available?
There's a lot of help. No, and let's be honest, like, these are very unusual and difficult times. Now, the first thing I would say is that, to keep in contact with people, by phone, and dare I say it, we're doing this interview by Zoom, and just keep in contact, and and that. The second thing I'd say is just the yellow messages that we see everywhere are vital, to improve, to keep the COVID virus at bay. The main things are to keep 2 meters apart, to wash one's hands, not to shake hands, not to have physical contact, to disinfect surfaces, those things, to do those. Now, if a person has got farming problems, the likes of Teagasc ourselves, we're available to give advice, and we can do that over the phone, or, we can meet people if needs be. Now, from a health care perspective, like, obviously farmers should be keeping in contact with their GP. So what shouldn't happen is that somebody is worried, like, about some matter, be it farming or personal or indeed COVID, and like that the worry becomes bigger than the problem. So if somebody has a concern, try and figure out what the concern, with your family and your friends and your advisors and your doctors, and solve it. And there are lots of guidance and advice on the Teagasc website and on the HSE's website, so you'll find it all there on the web.
There is great sources of advice there, either from their Teagasc advisor or their local GP.
Yeah, no, that's all there.
Finally, John, next week is Farm Safety Week. Obviously, events will be different this year. What's planned for the week?
We had this plan to have the biggest number of farm safety events in the country, but that's not going to happen. So there will be a major launch on Monday, involving the Minister, the IFA President, the head of the HSA, and the Director of Teagasc. Now, each day we'll have a specific theme, and we want to give out a strong message. So Monday is devoted to livestock. Tuesday is devoted to elderly farmers. Wednesday to children. Thursday to falling from heights. And Thursday is tractors and machinery. So we'll have an awful lot of material on Teagasc Daily, on our website, and we'll be tweeting and we'll be communicating through the media very strongly with farmers.
Farmers are dealing with livestock on a daily basis. What advice have you for farmers to be aware of?
Farmers and livestock must work together, believe it or not, and we are doing research on that at the moment. And there is a term called HAR. It's human-animal relationship, and that. So basically what that means is that if people are very big and very noisy and aggressive and banging and all that, that'll make cattle very kind of nervy and how would I put it, aggressive. They'll get nervous, and basically they'll lose confidence in the handler. So livestock have to have confidence in the handler. So that's one point I'd like to make. Now, the second point I'd like to make is, farmers can do a lot to breed for docility, over time. By checking the docility figures, is one area, and just examining cows that are docile, their offspring are likely to be docile as well. By breeding, you can gradually get to having a much calmer herd. So as well as having good facilities to handle animals, working with livestock also gets their temperament right.
That's great, John. We've covered a lot of topics today. If you were to give 3 tips to farmers to take action on their farm, what would they be?
The first thing I'd say is that farming is a potentially dangerous place. So always be watching out for risks. Safety is 365, 7 days a week. So always watch out for the danger, apart from the paperwork. And, if you see something dangerous going to happen, take preventative action. The next one, and it's a follow-on from that, is stop something. If something is dangerous, let's say the driver of the contractor's tractor is going too fast, just say stop. Just stop it, and then see what we need to do right, and then get going again. And I think the last one we've touched on as well is avoid kind of rushing and hurry. Work systematically and plan work. So it's and the last thing I'll say is that that 90% of accidents have some behavioural cause. So controlling what we do is crucial to preventing accidents.
So in advance of Farm Safety Week, John, farmers should take a look and update their farm risk assessment document. Thanks very much for joining me on the show.
Thank you.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to John for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.